There is so much talk about women's hormonal health, which is great. But even though it's a bigger part of the conversation, most women are left even more confused about what it means for them and what to do about it, which is not so great. This confusion ends now. An award-winning German nutrition scientist created a powerful herbal formula called Hormone Harmony, which combines 12 powerful adaptogens into one single capsule. Each of these ingredients is carefully selected based on scientific evidence, and it's been proven effective in clinical studies for women of various ages and hormonal profiles. And Happy Mammoth, the company that produces Hormone Harmony, is famous for its zero-compromise policy. No GMOs, artificial fillers or flavors, or any other junk. Only science-backed ingredients in amounts that are clinically proven. The company surveyed over 1,500 women to see how Hormone Harmony helped them, and the results are mind-blowing. 86% of women started losing weight, 77% say it improved their mood, and 100% said they're feeling like themselves again. Hormone Harmony has over 50,000 raving reviews from women all over the world, with 98% of them saying they'd gladly recommend it to their friends and family. For a limited time, you can get 15% off on your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code HAPPYME, HAPPYME, at checkout. That's code HAPPYME at happymammoth.com for 15% off your entire first order.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Have you heard of Olivia, the travel company for lesbians and LGBTQ+ women? You know what they say. Life is short and the world is wide. And when you're a lesbian or LGBTQ+ woman, you want to be able to go on vacation, have some fun, and be yourself. Olivia Travel creates full takeovers of their cruise, resort, riverboat, and adventure vacations, so you can relax and be completely yourself. Olivia also provides the entertainment, bringing comedians and musicians from within our community. Traveling by yourself? No problem. Olivia has a robust solos program so you can travel independently, together. Single, coupled, or in a group, you'll meet amazing LGBTQ+ women who come from all walks of life yet have so much in common. Join the thousands of Olivians who travel to bucket list destinations all over the world. It's life-changing to be in the majority on your own vacation. Discover Olivia for yourself at olivia.com today.
I so don't follow social media. I'm rarely on it, but a friend of mine who I do a lot of activism work with called and said, hey, there's this podcast and they're like, saying that they don't know why Ethan Coen is making this movie. He's not queer. What's the queer angle?
Here's everything we know so far about the new lesbian road trip movie that was just announced yesterday. It's being written by this man, Ethan Coen of the Coen brothers, and his wife, this woman, Tricia Cooke.
So I thought, you know what? I should maybe talk to these people because we knew that was going to be an issue from the get-go. Yeah. When we first met with the production company who gave us money for it, in our very first meeting, we talked about how we had to be very queer forward about our relationship, talk about our personal life, talk about, just my being a lesbian, my identifying as queer. So I felt like, oh, okay, well, here's an in. I can talk to these people and let them know.
Was that a conscious choice to not be talking about it publicly for however long, or did it just kind of happen?
I just don't talk about myself much, Yeah. It never came up. It wasn't like anyone ever asked Ethan about his personal life. And I've made movies, I've made queer movies, I've, done things in that world, but never on, such a large level, I guess. I just kind of existed under the radar, which was totally fine with me.
This is Tricia Cooke, the brains behind some recent lesbian comedy films you might have heard of, Drive Away Dolls, and more recently, Honey Don't.
She's also married to Ethan Coen, one of the Coen brothers. We got connected with Tricia back in 2022 when we first got word that a Coen brother was making a movie about a lesbian bar road trip, at one point titled Drive Away Dykes. As Tricia already mentioned, a friend showed her our little video questioning this lesbian road trip movie, and we soon realized that a lesbian was very much at the helm of these films. While Tricia and Ethan have been married since 1990, Tricia has always identified as a lesbian, and we're going to get into all the details of how that works for them. This episode actually takes place over 2 separate interviews, each about a year apart. First, Rachel and I visited Tricia and Ethan's Manhattan home last year after that first film, Drive Away Dolls, had come out. But this is actually part of a whole lesbian B-movie trilogy. And so in Act 2, I caught up with Tricia more recently about the next installment, a detective movie called Honey Don't, which at the time this is airing is still in theaters. I'm sure your experience would be enhanced by having seen these films, but I don't think it's necessary to enjoy the episode, which really ends up following the threads of Tricia's life, from coming up in the film industry to navigating her identity as a lesbian with a straight-presenting poly marriage over multiple decades. If you stick around for Act 2, which I hope you will, you'll also get some juicy behind-the-scenes details on the making of Honey Don't, and notably working with Aubrey Plaza and Margaret Qualley.
Well, we worked together. I met him shortly after I got out of college. I went down to New Orleans. He and his brother were making a movie down there, and I had a friend who was living down there, and I'd always wanted to go. So I was like, I'm going to get a job on this movie. And I knew someone who was working on it, who got me a job in the camera department as a camera PA. And I asked Ethan at the end of the job, because as a camera PA, you're right next to the camera. So, I got to know Ethan and Joel fairly well, or I was at least acquainted with them. And I said, I've always wanted to work in the cutting room.
Yeah.
And I'd been out of school for maybe 9 months or something. And Ethan was like, oh, we have a spot open. We don't have an apprentice, which wasn't true. They actually did have an apprentice, but they brought me in. Ethan and Joel back then used to cut with another editor. So they had a second editor who would cut half the movie and they would cut half the movie. So I started working as their apprentice, and Ethan asked me out. We went to go see Drugstore Cowboy.
So you said yes, though.
Well, because he was my boss.
Right.
I was like, I don't know if I can say no. And this was I guess 1989.
Yeah.
And I said yes, but I told him, I was like, I'm a lesbian, or I didn't, and not that I didn't realize, but, I was just like, okay, I'll go out. I'll go to the movies with you. And then it was clear that he was interested. And so I immediately, was like, I'm a lesbian,
yeah.
This isn't my thing. And he was very sweet. He just called and he said, because we were close, we hung out just as friends before we went on this date. We would go to bars, or we would sit and read or whatever. We just became good friends. And so after I told him I was a lesbian, he called that night and he was like, I don't want you to feel bad or uncomfortable. It's totally cool, but can we still, just have a friendship? So for years we were just friends, very close friends who became my best friends. And we spent a lot of time together. We would often take books and go to bars and read. That was how we spent our time, or I would come over to his place and we would read or whatever. And then we went on a trip, and this was years later, and I was like, I hadn't really made any connections. I had never really had even a real relationship with a woman. It just wasn't really working. And I was like, I love this person. I enjoy his company. And so why not give this a try?
What was that then like for you coming back to your friends? Well, I imagine it's just kind of a constant explanation?
It was totally bizarre.
Yeah.
In fact, my friend that I had grown up with, who moved to Boston, met us on this trip, and after Ethan and I had connected, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going out of my mind. Like, I'm still a lesbian. Like, I don't understand what's happening, but he was super supportive, and all of my friends were very supportive. I mean, it was clear that we loved each other.
Yeah.
It was clear that we were really close. And so everyone was just like, great. I hope this works out for you.
Yeah. But how did that feel for you as far as your identity? Like, was that something that you had to sort of reckon with?
Yes. So when I connected with Ethan, I mean, I think that's when I actually started probably going to more lesbian bars. I felt like
that makes a lot of sense.
I had lost a part of my identity, and I wanted to still stay connected to the community. And yeah, it was hard. It was like, whoa, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, am I bisexual? I've never really identified as bisexual. I'd always identified as a lesbian. And I mean, even now, like, I have girlfriends who are like, are you bisexual? Are you, and I'm like, I don't know, like, I just am.
Yeah.
It's not I don't want to put a label on it. I've never really felt like I would want to be in a relationship with anyone other than a woman aside from Ethan.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that have to really reckon with being in a straight passing relationship when it feels like so core to their identity, being queer.
Yeah.
I mean, even people like women that are with really passing trans men, you want to like be on the streets of Brooklyn like, I'm gay.
Yeah. I'm queer. Yes. I mean, for sure, you never want to feel like you're passing,
I know.
I mean, that was hard, especially because I have kids, and, there was this whole world of like mom and PTA and all of these like super hetero kind of worlds that I, ended up in. But I still felt like I had my queer community. I was always very open and with everyone that I knew in my identity. And so it never felt dishonest to me.
Yeah.
But I think to the world, for sure, anyone who would see me and Ethan, if I didn't have some kind of connection to them, would just think that we were, a straight couple.
Right.
Because I've moved around a lot. I mean, just like, in the film world, you end up kind of going to different locations all the time. I mean, I had kids, so not that it's compartmentalized, but I certainly have so many facets of like stuff going on that I never felt disconnected from the community. I felt disconnected from my own identity.
Yeah.
And so when Ethan and there was a point when I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I have to open up this relationship.
Okay.
I can't just be in this, straight heterosexual relationship. It just doesn't feel right to me. So we both started seeing other people, even though we stayed together. Well, for a while, we separated for many years. But we've just always been really close. Like, we really enjoy each other's company. We like working together. We like traveling together. We just like hanging out together. So we just always come back to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really beautiful. So how many years ago was it that you opened up your relationship?
I mean, Ethan and I were probably in a relationship for 10 years before we opened it up. And now it's been 20 years, maybe.
Wow. I mean, and now it's so much more common. What was the landscape like of open relationships I can't even imagine 20 years ago what that was like.
It was
more explaining to do.
Yeah. And people, I mean, and it kind of, some people were very alienated by it. Some people were like, I don't understand. And then, I had many friends who would come and say, I'm really struggling in my relationship. Can I talk to you about having an open relationship? Mm-hmm. How have you made it work? But it was not easy. It was certainly not easy with my, like with my mother, like my own, personal relationships. I struggled. I had a very hard time with my mother over the years. I mean, we always made it work. For me, the hardest thing, Ethan has a partner who he's had for almost 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
And I've been the one who's struggled a little bit more with my partners because, you know, you can be very straightforward and say like, look, this is the situation, you know, like this is the setup, and they're all gung ho, you know, they're like, yeah, that's cool. I can make that work. No problem. But the further you get into a relationship, you know, the more secure you want it to be, the safer you want it to be. And so, you know, then it becomes harder.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Rachel and I are laughing because
We can cut this off the tape. You can say it.
I'm like newly dating someone that's in a hetero relationship, and it's been really hard.
Oh,
I'm like, great, it's good. Yeah, I can see how that would get harder as it goes on. We'll see, whatever.
Reminder that this conversation took place last year, and unsurprisingly, this did not work out for me.
I think if you're flexible and you're just like, okay, great. Like,
I know, and that's the stage that I'm in right now. Like what you're saying, I'm like, okay, I know all the deets. Like I'm so fine with it.
Right.
But I'm like,
in a couple of years, it's hard. I mean, I've been in a relationship now for 5 years, almost 5 years with this woman who, like, you know, also like does a lot of traveling. She's a social organizer. And she was like, yeah, my life is really complicated and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh, finally, I've met someone who, you know, can hang and is going to be easy with this. And, you know, ultimately, people want to feel like they're the priority.
Which makes sense, of course.
Yeah. So, well, good luck.
Oh my God. Thanks. How did you meet your current partner?
We met in DC trying to get Trump impeached.
Whoa.
In 2020. Like, we were trying to get enough votes to get him, like, really impeached, not just the House impeaching him.
Yeah.
And I had done work with a friend in GAG. We had done a big action down in DC.
Gays Against Guns. Right?
Gays Against Guns. A couple months before that. And my friend was like, come down to DC. I'm going down. Will you come down? And I had seen Lisa before, and I thought she was really cute because I had done some actions in November. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go down. And I mean, not just because Lisa was there, but I knew
in the back of your mind a little bit.
Yeah. I was like, I know she's going to be there.
Yeah.
And I think she's pretty hot. So I went down for a week, and by the end of the month, we were just creating actions, like literally, like anyone who could come up with an action each day, like we would do it.
Yeah.
So we would shut down the rotunda, or we would, you know, do different things. And I had an idea for all of us to go in on the day of the hearing. I think there were 10 of us. It was the last day, and we just all sat down in the rotunda and locked arms and just chanted until they came and arrested us all. But they could hear us. They could hear us in the Senate chamber. So we got arrested together.
Were your arms linked?
Yeah, our arms were linked. I think, yeah. And for some reason, only Lisa and I had court dates. Like, we were supposed to show up in court on the same date. And the day we were supposed to leave, I had told my friend Myra, I was like, I have a crush on Lisa. And Myra said something to Lisa. Lisa had been in a long-term relationship in Austin. And she was like, you know, how long have you been single? Like, you know, I just have 2 words for you, Tricia Cooke. And Lisa was like, what? So the day we left, Lisa came up and she said, you know, Myra told me you have a crush. I'm like, God damn it, Myra.
Damn, sounds familiar.
Yeah. But we texted and stuff for about a month. And then we went down for our court date and connected. And then like 3 weeks later, it was COVID, you know, so Lisa had been kind of in transition from Austin to here. And she ended up living with us for a year, which I had never done. I had never lived with a girlfriend full time.
Yeah.
So that was different.
Just the 3 of you living together?
No, there was my daughter was here for part of it. She was in college, but she was here. And then we had another friend who had moved in too. So there were 5 of us.
Like in this apartment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. And then it's like during lockdown is when you pulled back out your old script, correct? For Driveway Dykes.
Ethan and I had, at the very beginning of the lockdown, a friend of ours had come to us with an idea for a documentary about Jerry Lee Lewis. And we made that at the beginning of the lockdown. And because Ethan had kind of semi-retired and he hadn't really been working for a couple of years. And when we made that, which was just all cutting, like we were just given footage that we cut together, he really enjoyed it. And he was like, oh, well, why don't we pull out these scripts and see if we can get them made? So we rewrote, kind of, not extensively, but we rewrote a good part of Drive Away Dykes and, also kind of polished up this new movie, Honey Don't.
And that was already written.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although Drive Away Dykes we wrote in the early 2000s, Honey Don't, we probably wrote like 10 years later or something.
It's so funny because when we first heard, so obviously the film is now called Drive Away Dolls. And like the thing that like really was getting us going when we were first reading about this lesbian bar road trip is we're like, they're using dykes, like they're calling us dykes, like these straight people. And then it's like, of course, you don't end up using the word and you are lesbian. And I'm like, I miss the dyke part, which you put in at the end.
Well, because they wouldn't let us use it.
I know.
We broke our, that's how my friend Mara and I came up with the title before we wrote the script. I came home one night from the Pravda bar, which used to be this like vodka bar down in the Puck building. And I was like, Ethan, Mara and I came up with this great title for a movie, Drive Away Dykes. And he was like, you should write that movie. So the title preceded the script.
Were you trying to get it made, like more recently trying to get it made with dykes in the title and it just wouldn't go?
Oh, yeah. Focus was totally down with the title. That's what, that was the script we sent them. It was called Drive Away Dykes. We took the title off when we were shooting it because they were afraid that we wouldn't be able to secure some locations with that title. And in fact, the location, but we lost a couple of locations because the location, they were very transparent and, would tell the people what the movie was about. And there were a couple of people who were just like, yeah, no, you can't shoot here if that's the content.
You think it was because of the word dyke? Or it was
no, because it was a lesbian.
Because it was really lesbian.
Yeah. No, we didn't have a title while we were making it. It was just called the Untitled Road Comedy. But yeah, then when we went back to them, they kept asking us, like, have we come up with a new title? And we couldn't really think of anything. We liked the alliteration of Drive Away Dykes and Drive Away Dolls was the closest we could come up with. And also, the MPAA, there were so many reasons we couldn't use dykes at the end of the day. The MPAA, who assigns like ratings to movies, also determines what you can title a movie. And so often they'll say you can't use that title for whatever reason. So there were people who wouldn't advertise it if it was called Drive Away Dykes. There were, theaters that wouldn't put it on their marquee if it was called Drive Away Dykes. So for the purpose of just, having it in movie theaters, it had to have a name change.
Yeah. So what was your role being the kind of like lesbian at the helm of this movie, like lesbian in charge of things? What was your influence?
The lesbian in the know. Ethan and I really made the movie together. So we directed it together. So all the decisions we made jointly, the way all of the sets looked, definitely the costumes. Actually, Ethan's partner is the costume designer. The woman that he's been in a relationship with for many years. So I worked really closely with Peggy around especially the looks for all of the extras and the bars, all of the lesbians for sure. Like that was my domain. Like that was what I knew.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Any way that I can influence, especially the way the bars looked, like that culture, I did. And even fighting for the go-go dancer. Ethan did not want to put that go-go dancer in at the beginning. And I'm like, Ethan, you were never at it. Like, you were never at these bars. Trust me. There were go-go dancers at these bars.
There has to be a go-go dancer.
Yeah. So, just trying to make it as authentic as possible.
Yeah. Kind of like trying to capture this 90s, early 2000s, like vibe and culture. And I feel like that was so, I mean, that's just like dripping from the movie is this like really unique style that like doesn't feel modern in a way. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like kind of, I know that was like a big part of your inspiration.
We wrote the movie in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And that was the period of time that I, was spending a lot of time in lesbian bars. I was going out a lot, with friends. I was single. So, I was going out to meet women. I just spent a lot of time in queer bars. And so it was very natural for me to write about that culture. And I felt like the bars, specifically in New York, were, interesting enough and had so much life. I mean, it was such a community that they would be fun to portray. Still, Cubby Hole is still like a gorgeous, fun bar to go into. Caddyshack back in the day was 3 levels of, just women and go-go dancers and, pool, and Meow Mix was a great dive bar. Everyone would come together and watch the L Word. People would bring their lawn chairs. It felt like a family. So that was an environment and a vibe that I thought would be fun to capture. It was also just something I know. I go to bars a lot. It felt like the bars were what connected. That was the path of the road trip. It was like, okay, well, where could we go and, have interesting bars on this trip? I mean, there were other things that inspired, but I felt like the glue that kind of held the movie together was the bars that they kind of ended up in.
Yeah, and then I was reading that they're like specifically each bar has some inspiration from places that you were just talking about, right? Can you talk about that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I feel like the first bar, Sugar and Spice, was inspired by Caddyshack. We put the go-go dancers in there. It was supposed to be kind of the hippest bar that they went to. The Butter Churn, which is the bar that they go to in the middle of nowhere. I've been on a lot of road trips. I love taking road trips, and my long-term girlfriend and I took a lot of road trips and would end up in little bars all over the country. So that bar was inspired by a number of just like little dive queer bars that we would go to. And then the She Shed, which is the bar that's in Tallahassee. Yeah. I mean, we decorated to feel, hopefully to feel like the Cubby Hole.
Yeah.
The bar that we shot in for the She Shed, the interior of that bar is a queer bar in Pittsburgh. It's called Lucky's.
Do you remember your first ever lesbian bar experience?
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, I used to go to lesbian bars that weren't really lesbian bars. They were gay bars. And then one night a week, it would be, like women's night.
Yeah. Where and when was that?
Like the mid 80s.
Okay. Around here in New York.
Well, no, more in Boston and Los Angeles. A really close friend of mine growing up moved to Boston around the same time I moved to New York. So I would go up there and we would go out to a lot of bars up there.
That makes sense because like there were brick and mortar spaces here, but as far as we know, not in Boston or like not many in Boston.
No, I mean, I can't think of one lesbian bar in Boston, but I went to a lot of, like I would go up, you'd be like, okay, Tuesday night is the women's night. And I'd be like, okay, I'll come up, from Monday through Thursday. And then in Los Angeles.
So that was really important. You were like traveling up to Boston to go do that.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And also at the time he was in a relationship with someone who was in law school up there and was kind of part of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance in the law school. Mm-hmm. And they would have parties. And so I would go up for the weekends for the parties in the late 80s. And then there were bars in LA. I mean, I was trying to remember, I did a documentary called Where the Girls Are.
Yeah, which I can't find to stream.
Yeah, it's it's because I used a lot of footage that the Dinah Shore, her family wouldn't give me the rights to use. So I just ended up using it anyway and putting it in festivals. But it could never get released because I was never able to get the rights. Video footage of her. I used a bunch of her shows and some of the songs that she recorded. I had Frank. Do you know the lesbian singer Frank, Phrance?
No.
She recorded a couple of songs for it. And we shot it at the Dinosaur Weekend.
Can you explain what that is for people that don't know?
The Dinosaur Weekend is a huge lesbian party in Palm Springs that coincides with the first LPGA, whatever, the golfers, like the Women's Golf Association. They have Grand Slam events just like in tennis, like Wimbledon or whatever. They had an event called the Dinosaur Golf Tournament. And because there were so many lesbians on the tour back in the day, they would come, their lovers would come, their friends would come, and it just started to become this gathering place. It's not far from Los Angeles. And then these party promoters started going and turning it into a big party.
Was that something that you attended before covering it?
My mom lived out there. I grew up in Southern California, and when my father passed away, my parents were big golfers, and they lived in La Quinta, which isn't far from where the tournament took place. So I knew my mom and all of her friends. I had kind of like that camp. And then I knew a bunch of women who would go to the parties. And I was like, oh, this is a really good juxtaposition of these two worlds.
So you grew up in Southern California, and then did you live there until college?
Yes. I grew up in a town called Whittier. By the time I was about 16 or 17, I knew I was a lesbian.
Yeah.
But I didn't come out until I moved to New York. I went to school for 3 years in Los Angeles at USC. And then I moved to New York to finish school. I went to the film school here, and I came out when I was here.
What made you know at 16, 17?
I don't know. I mean, I had childhood crushes. Like, I loved Olivia Newton-John in Grease. I saw it 10 times.
No, it's always pretty actresses.
Like Farrah Fawcett and
Yeah.
Olivia Newton-John. I had these crushes when I was young, but I don't think I understood what they were. And then
I was like, why do I want them to be my mom?
yeah, why am I watching this movie over and over again? I think I saw a couple of movies. I saw this Robert Altman movie called Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, which has a transgender character. And then I also saw La Cage aux Folles, and those two movies. I mean, for me, growing up in the suburbs, that was kind of my introduction to the queer world. Like, I could finally even have a name for, what I felt. Like, I was like, oh, I'm a lesbian. Oh, this makes sense. Oh, this is my community.
Yeah.
I hadn't felt that before seeing those movies.
Everyone that we talk to has these influences. And like, especially for you who then goes into this world, it's so obvious to me that like the films that you're making and the films that you're talking about are like so valuable to queer people.
Definitely. I mean, especially if you feel isolated or, you don't have a welcoming community, it's hard to know where to go or even how to understand what you're feeling. Like I said, back then it was. And then certainly after that, read The Price of Salt and, like all of these books. Then you start like Ruby Fruit Jungle, which was actually a bar here.
Many bars.
Yeah. Ruby Fruit used to be not far from Henrietta's, although it wasn't a bar that I went to a lot.
Do you remember like how you internalized this messaging that it wasn't safe for you to be out or like you just weren't comfortable yet?
Yeah. I mean, I think, even I probably made fun of, and certainly all of my peers would make fun of the effeminate teachers in school or there was one teacher that we all thought was a lesbian. And I remember, everyone making fun of her. And I'm sure I was nervous, and I'm sure I did too. I mean, it's funny because my parents, like, I grew up in a very fiscally conservative household, but my dad was a dentist, and I remember him bringing home a gay couple for dinner, you know? So, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't around, and I didn't feel like I would be totally ostracized from my family. I just felt like I would lose all of my friends and I would have no one to connect with. I didn't know anyone who was gay in school. And then it turned out that my best friend from high school, the one who moved here to Boston, was also queer. Like, we had gone to all the proms together, you know, like we did everything together, never talking about it until we both moved away and were comfortable coming out.
Yeah. Okay, I want to hear about the lawn chairs to watch the L Word. Like, what was that setting?
That was at Meow Mix. Do you know Meow Mix? People talked about it.
No, because our third producer went there a lot and has told us a bit about it, but not much.
Yeah, Meow Mix was on Houston, way east, like over near Avenue C, Avenue D. Also, there were go-go dancers in the basement at Meow Mix. It was just it was the grungier, divier lesbian bar.
Yeah.
The coolest, like, lesbians hung out at Meow Mix, for sure. The woman who started it, Brooke Webster, then started Caddyshack. She opened Meow Mix and then moved out to Brooklyn and opened Caddyshack on 4th Avenue. It felt like a super casual scene to me. There were a couple of televisions and you would go in, and on the L Word night, people would come in with whatever. Like, there weren't enough stools, so people would bring in their own chairs and everyone would watch and just kind of hang out and then talk about the show afterwards. And, you know, I mean, at that time, the L Word was a huge deal. I mean, there weren't, you know, just like lesbian based shows. I mean, I think Ellen was on at the time. You know, that wasn't really a lesbian show. It wasn't, you know, like a bunch of hot women having sex. It was, you know, Ellen doing her sitcom.
Can you talk a little bit more about the B movie thing? Like, first of all, what makes something a B movie? And I know you've talked about, like, the lesbian B movie couldn't have been made when you first wrote it. Yeah, if you could talk about all that. First, let's define B movie.
I mean, well, a B movie was always like the movie that was paired with the kind of major motion picture. So if you went to the movies in the 40s or 50s or 60s, there was often a very cheap movie that was shown before kind of like the feature attraction. They were usually shorter. They were almost always very cheap, kind of slapped together, lots of plot holes and, you know, often bad acting. And you can kind of get away with things a little more. They can be a little sloppier, a little dirtier, you know, like they can be over the top in a way. I mean, I don't know if John Waters would classify his movies as B movies.
But I know what you mean.
You know, or Roger Corman, all of those people who would go out and make movies for $100,000, people who were just cranking them out. And we wanted to be able to make a movie where it wasn't a highbrow movie. I mean, for me, Ethan and his brother, not that they're all like art house movies, but they have a reputation for making, you know, very like serious intellectual movies. And, you know, this was just supposed to be silly and fun.
Yeah. Can you explain what I was saying about the ability to get it made in the early 2000s, whether there was a place for that or not?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the fact that it was a B movie. I think it was more that it was a queer movie. I mean, I think I think people couldn't wrap their head around it. Most of the other queer films that were being made at the time, I mean, I've often brought up both Go Fish, Rose is an old friend of mine, and But I'm a Cheerleader, which were two comedic films that were made maybe around that time. But aside from those two movies, there just weren't a lot of other, especially lesbian movies that were being made that were, you know, super light, that weren't coming out stories, that didn't take themselves so seriously. I mean, that was like Drive Away Dykes or Drive Away Dolls just isn't meant to take itself seriously, you know, and I think people can wrap their head around that.
Is there anything you can tell us about what's coming next for your lesbian movies? What's on the docket?
Well, we're finishing up this movie Honeydale, which is another kind of genre movie. It's a detective story. And the lead character is Honey O'Donoghue, and Margaret Qualley plays Honey. Set in Bakersfield, and there's a death, and she's called to kind of investigate the death, and she has to figure out what happened.
And then there will be a third lesbian movie coming out.
Yeah.
Wait, I heard there's like a tentative title of it. It's like Beaver something.
Yeah, it's called Go Beavers. And Ethan and I have written some of it, although we're rewriting it, or we've talked about rewriting it. Go Beavers was a camp song that our kids came home with one summer.
That's so funny.
And the lyrics just are mind blowing. I was like, oh my God, we have to write them.
Wait, what are those? Tell us some of them.
I can't remember exactly, but it's like, let's all do the beaver call. Go Beavers. Go Beavers. Yeah, it's a lot about beaver.
Have you heard of Olivia, the travel company for lesbians and LGBTQ plus women? You know what they say. Life is short and the world is wide. And when you're a lesbian or LGBTQ plus woman, you want to be able to go on vacation, have some fun, and be yourself. Olivia Travel creates full takeovers of their cruise, resort, riverboat, and adventure vacations, so you can relax and be completely yourself. Olivia also provides the entertainment, bringing comedians and musicians from within our community. Traveling by yourself? No problem. Olivia has a robust solos program so you can travel independently, together. Single, coupled, or in a group, you'll meet amazing LGBTQ plus women who come from all walks of life yet have so much in common. Join the thousands of Olivians who travel to bucket list destinations all over the world. It's life-changing to be in the majority on your own vacation. Discover Olivia for yourself at olivia.com today. You actually don't have to spend big bucks or tons of time in the kitchen in order to make delicious food at home. When you use EveryPlate, you get restaurant-level deliciousness week after week with recipes like crispy buffalo ranch chicken and cheesy Mexican street corn hash, to name a few. You'll spend less on your EveryPlate orders than you would at a restaurant and even on your normal groceries. I personally hate making decisions about what I'm going to buy and what I'm going to eat, and EveryPlate does all of that thinking for you, and they're easy to follow recipes. You're always getting fresh ingredients, you're always getting variety. I seriously love using EveryPlate, and I know you will too. So what are you waiting for? Dig into these flavor-packed meals your household will love. New customers can enjoy this special offer of only $1.99 a meal. Go to everyplate.com/podcast and use code CRUISING199 to get started. Applied as discount on first box, limited time only.
You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. This podcast you're listening to, it was once just a dream. A dream that became reality not by accident, but because someone decided not to let the what-ifs keep them from creating something they believed in. Starting your own business is a dream lots of us share, but too many let it remain just a dream. Don't hold yourself back from creating what you believe in, and turn those what-ifs into why-nots with Shopify by your side. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. What if I can't design a website? Shopify's got you with beautiful, ready-to-go templates to match your brand's style. What if I need a hand? Get help with everyday tasks like enhancing product images, writing product descriptions, or generating discount codes with Shopify's AI tools created for commerce. What if people haven't heard about my brand? Shopify helps you find your customers with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. And what if I get stuck? Shopify's always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. So turn those dreams into and give them the best shot at success with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. Shopify.com/realm. Summer really lends itself to a minimal effort, maximum impact makeup look. When it comes to looking and feeling your best, especially in the August heat, sometimes less is more. And when you're working with fewer products, you want the quality to be high, which is why Thrive Causemetics is your go-to for a simple, clean, and radiant summer look. Every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. One of my favorite Less is More products is their Brilliant Eye Brightener. It's a waterproof eyeshadow and highlighter stick that comes in 34 shades. The shimmer shades are great for brightening up your inner corners, and they also have really lovely neutral matte shades that, again, can make a really big impact on your overall look without requiring too much product. Plus, for every product purchased, Thrive Causemetics donates products and funds to help communities thrive. And with over $150 million in product and cash donations to over 600 giving partners, your purchase directly fuels real impact. Maximize your look with minimal effort. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/thrive for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/thrive.
Okay, so now we are fast forwarding about a year to my second conversation with Tricia. This was very recent. Rachel and I had just gone to a screening of her new movie, Honey Don't, a lesbian detective movie, and the second in the aforementioned lesbian B-movie trilogy. Again, it will enhance your experience to have seen the movie, but I feel pretty confident it's all interesting in a lesbian culture, pulling the Hollywood curtain back sort of way, whether you've seen it or not.
When we started writing them, which was now almost 25 years ago when we were writing Drive Away Dykes, it was because it just seemed like there wasn't enough queer representation in genre movies. When we wrote Drive Away Dykes and then Honey Don't, because we also wrote that about at least 10 years ago, it was just to fill that need, that void in the, B-movie world. Usually the specific genres. So Westerns and horror movies and film new and detective movies and road movies are kind of, the B movies that I think of.
So we have lesbian road trip movie, lesbian detective movie, and based on Go Beavers, like what I am imagining is like lesbian sports movie. What is Go Beavers?
Go Beavers. No, it was we had intended it for it to be a horror movie. It's Go Beavers is a they're a crew team and they're like they go back for their 10th year reunion. It's kind of like a cross for us. It was like a cross between Deliverance and Walkabouts, but we haven't written that much of it, so we'll see.
That's very exciting to me. So probably my favorite part of the film is the explicit lesbian sex. I feel like even more so than Drive Away Dolls. I don't know. It felt relatable to me. It felt like something I hadn't really seen in movies. And so I'm curious, like, the mindset behind that, is that always something that you wanted to have in this film? Was there pushback in making these scenes? What was kind of the whole situation around those?
Yes, I mean, it was always, we wrote those sex scenes into the script, both, the scenes with, Margaret and Aubrey, and also the scenes with the Reverend, with Chris. They were all written in there. There wasn't any pushback, certainly not when we made the movie. When Focus, gave us the money, there was no like, oh, you have to tone down these sex scenes. I would say that there was maybe a little pushback on, do we have to show so many sex toys?
But that was that's such a big part of being
a lesbian, right?
Exactly. Not even like what's in good taste, but a little goes a long way, And I mean, we had so many sex toys in that sink, like she was just pulling out sex toy after sex toy. I mean, it was a bit of a gag. And then I thought, well, but this is real. Like the reason we put it in there is because that's a big part of lesbian sex is, having toys to play with. So I wanted it not to just be a sight gag. I wanted it to be like, you know what, this is, how lesbians have sex. So in that regard, I mean, I think maybe we took out one butt plug or something. I mean, I don't know, like we might have shortened one shot by a few seconds. So you didn't see that last sex toy. But yeah, when we were shooting it, it was great. I mean, Margaret and Aubrey got on so well and kind of went above and beyond. We're just ready to do anything. And so that was really, I mean, we had storyboarded the whole thing and we had, you always storyboard it and there's only so much you're supposed to show and whatever. And both Aubrey and Margaret were just like, it's okay. We want to do this. And so the only person who was freaking out was the intimacy coordinator because the intimacy coordinator was like, they didn't sign off on this. You can't do this. And, so we kind of had to work around that. Both Margaret and Aubrey were like, it's okay. We'll talk to you whenever. We'll just let's just shoot this. So there was a little bit of drama there.
As in like you were kind of introducing new ideas and that's what they mean? They didn't sign off on this?
Just how much they were willing to show of their body. I mean, there's usually contractually, they don't have to show, below the neck or whatever. They can show their back, like naked back, but not so much. And I mean, that was what was in their contracts. And so that had to be changed because they were just like, no, this is what we want to do, which was great for us. And I was like, great, and it was fun to watch. And I mean, also the initial scene, the bar scene where, they're kind of finger, that was also fun. And that was interesting because when we had written it, it was, the roles were reversed. So Honey was the one who was doing the finger. And then when we started rehearsing it and working with the two of them, it became clear, Aubrey was like, I think I would be doing this. And so we thought about it and we rewrote the scene to change those roles.
I loved that scene so much. And that, among all of the other things, did not feel like gags to me. Like, it felt like lesbian culture in a way. And also, like, of course, the girl in the dress is the one that's going to get fingered at the bar.
Well, it's funny because when we were writing it, it was because we wanted to play with the gender norms in noir. And so we wanted it to be, like a butch femme relationship. That was kind of like how we went into it. And MG, was the butch lesbian and Honey was the feminine, like the femme. And we wanted Honey to be the detective, like we wanted the femme fatale to be butch and we wanted the kind of conventional femme fatale to be the detective. But when we were writing that scene in particular, Ethan was like, well, we'll put MG in a skirt. And so Honey, and I was like, no way. Like MG would never wear a skirt. That's
never.
Not, a butch thing. So it became harder. And then when Aubrey was like, well, I would be the one doing this, it was like, duh, like, why didn't we think of that? So,
yeah, it felt like a very interesting dynamic to like see Honey in that position, but also see Honey like sort of Honey is taking control. Like Honey grabs her arm and takes control of the situation.
Well, that also was it. We were like, okay, well, Honey has to kind of initiate it. Like Honey has to be in control here. They're both fighting for control. So that was one of the dynamics that we wanted to play around with was who's in control, who's on top.
I love it. What's your mindset about representation in people working on the film? And like, how do you go about casting these queer roles in that way?
We thought about it, I would say we thought about it more when we were making Drive Away Dykes. And it was really important for me to have, some queer actors in that movie. And, we were lucky Beanie was in that movie and, Coleman, and, some other, other people as well. In this movie, we had worked with Margaret before, so it didn't feel like we have to cast a queer character because Margaret had already played a lesbian in Drive Away Dykes. And Aubrey, to me, felt like she's such a part of kind of queer culture. She's beloved by everyone, especially, I feel like, especially in the lesbian world. She felt right for that part. And then, getting people like Billy Eichner and Jacques Neer and some other queer actors in there is great. We have a very female-driven crew. Ari, the cinematographer, Peggy Schnitzer, and then, a lot of the crew, a lot of the camera crew were all queer. So, as much as you can, I mean, I definitely pushed for women in, like, as department heads on Drive Away Dykes, and also as many as you can find, as we could get on this movie.
That's cool. So what else was your role in, like, infusing lesbian culture, continuing to do that throughout the process?
When Ethan and I worked together on the last movie and on this movie, it's a collaboration, like, from beginning to end. So even though he's, in title the director, I mean, we're both directing it. So yeah, I mean, in terms of certainly costumes and what these characters would be wearing, working with Peggy Schnitzer, and even in production design with Honey's apartment, the books she would read, all of that, like, those are all books on the nightstand, anything that you would see, all of the sex toys, all of that. So anytime there's anything queer in the movie, certainly Ethan looks to me to kind of provide him guidance because he's not really in touch with that world. I mean, he is more so now.
What about, like, with character development and stuff? Is that something that you were involved in?
Yes. Working with actors, character development, and when we're writing the script, just what types of characters. So we wanted it to be a queer world. So not only, Honey and MG and Spider, who's Honey's assistant, but also the Billy Eichner character and his lover. Like, we wanted to get as much of the, queer world as we could in there. So coming up with how MG and Honey relate to each other and all of that was something that, we do together, but I provide guidance. Like, who's wearing the dress here? That was something very specific that, or the sex toys, I mean, how important sex toys are in the lesbian world. All of, like, Honey's, like, her wardrobe. Like, I wanted her to be, like, a super highly feminine, lesbian. So the way she relates to Marty and how she shows up and the shoes she's wearing as she's walking down into the ravine, like, all of that wanted to feel hyper feminine to me in a very butch femme way. And I also wanted her to be badass, like, I wanted her to beat Mickey up, and like, we wanted her to be like a superhero almost in the way that she could especially relate to men.
What else went into the character descriptions for, I guess, specifically the two leads? Is there more you can say about what you were imagining for these characters?
I mean, for Honey, I think it's pretty well represented. She was kind of like very fashionable, very feminine, a lot of dresses and high heels and a lot of different, like, hairstyles and a little more glammed out. And in the script, MG's character was more butch. She, was always in, very masculine clothing, had very short cropped hair. And we actually initially had the title sequence wasn't what we shot. It was, and this was before we knew Margaret, and Margaret's a dancer, but it was a dance sequence. And Honey is dancing, and she's dancing with someone, and that person's back is to us the whole time. But you can see, like, a collar and a suit and a tie and very short hair, and you think it's a man. And then at the end of the title sequence, it, ends up being MG or a butch lesbian. So we had written that in and then we changed that.
That's cool. I do love where you landed with the title sequence. I was like so taken by it. But so casting Aubrey and Margaret, we started talking about, was there some sort of like chemistry test? Like how did you like pair these two together and what was that like?
We didn't have a chemistry test. From having worked with Margaret on Drive Away Dykes, I mean, Margaret has a lot of, like she's got great chemistry. She just moves in a very seductive way. And Aubrey as well. I mean, from what I'd seen of her, she's got that dark brooding, but she has a lot of sexual energy. So we imagined that it would be like together they would be really dynamic and they would have good chemistry, and they did. They got on really, really well. They were just into it and into each other. They really enjoyed each other's company. So it was fun to watch that because you never know. I just recently saw the clip from Cannes where they're up like at the top of the red steps, and there's a shot where Margaret's kind of hands goes down and like it's right on Aubrey's ass, and I didn't know that had happened until I don't know, a couple of days ago. Someone sent it to me, but they're just very good friends.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about, I mean, I hear so many anecdotes about what Aubrey Plaza is like as a person. Like, is there anything interesting about working with her on set? Any antics from her that are worth sharing?
Aubrey was more method than anyone I had ever worked with. So, she really kind of like amps herself up and will do a lot of kind of, not calisthenics, but especially in the last scene that she's in, there was a lot of like working herself up to prepare for that scene. Sometimes she would yell, sometimes she would, like jump up and down or do things to, kind of like get her blood pumping in a way that like I wasn't used to, just kind of, shouting out things that would help her get into character. She's a really good person. She's really easy to hang out with. She's very warm and personable. Like she knows, all the crew members, she knows their names and stuff. And she's a lovely person to have on set because not only is she's a great actress, but she also brings really great ideas. She's, good at improvising, and she just pushes everyone around her to perform fun and interesting ways.
I saw in an interview about this that you mentioned something about being an outsider in both the straight and queer worlds. And I think I know what you mean by that, but I would love for you to explain that a little and how that impacted like the making of this film, like how that's related to this.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like my life, it's a little unconventional. I have two partners and, kind of straddle these worlds. And I'm just a bit of I'm not a loner, but I'm a kind of extroverted introvert. So, in ways where there's community around in the lesbian world and there's community in, kind of a straight world, I kind of like am on the fringes of those. So, but that's, all my life. Like, it's not like, I certainly have many queer friends and many friends who are moms or whatever, heteronormative, but I've never felt like, oh, this is my identity in a way. I don't know if that relates to this movie because this movie is so much about, to me, this butch femme kind of identity. And I learned about it. I had no idea, but I started working with two people, writing with some friends who identified as butch and femme. And that's around the time that we were writing Honey Don't. And so that world kind of opened up to me. I mean, I've always felt a little more kind of, androgynous and kind of appearance, and I wouldn't identify as either butch or femme.
Mm-hmm. The last question that I wanted to ask you is about the setting. I feel like you guys make it clear right away that this is set in modern day with a COVID reference. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would love to hear the thinking behind that. There's also so much of the film that doesn't feel modern, like everything about Honey kind of doesn't. And honestly, that COVID reference was the thing that made it clear where we were.
I might be wrong, but I think you have Billy Eichner to thank for that, because I think he was the one who did that initially. He was, we had him, he was very fastidious, like he was a germaphobe, but he came in when he auditioned, he used COVID. He was like, COVID. And we were like, oh, that's brilliant. We need to put that into the movie so people are grounded, so people know that this is a modern movie. I mean, there are other ways in which it's modern. They use cell phones, and it's hard to make a detective story or a thriller or anything like that, in modern times, because there's so many ways people gather information. It's hard to not be able to find things out with Google and, whatever, the internet and your smartphones and stuff. But we wanted it to feel timeless. We wanted it to feel like a noir from the 40s and the 50s. And I think that the way Honey presents, just, like clothing wise, and even her office and all of that, it's not time specific. You can't really place that. So that was intentional.
So were you saying that Billy Eichner, like, he improvised the COVID reference? Was a lot of his character improvised?
He definitely improvised when he was auditioning. Like, he improvised that, and then we wrote it into the script. I can't remember what he stuck to in the script. He's one of those actors. I mean, he's a comedic actor, just like Aubrey comes from that world of improvisation. So it's always fun to work with them and their ideas, especially people as talented as both of them and Margaret. I mean, everyone came in with, Chris also came in with really great ideas and, things that he wanted to try. And so you try to incorporate those.
Spoiler alert, this episode actually ends here for anyone that hasn't seen the film or doesn't want a spoiler. How did you decide that one of the main lesbian characters would be the villain?
We wanted one of the lesbian characters to be the femme fatale, which is a very classic trope or, a stereotypical character in film noir. And the detective always falls for the wrong person, always falls for the person who's, going to destroy him or her. So we wanted Honey to fall for the femme fatale and to be the villain. And someone asked, are you afraid of, in today's, climate, of making kind of like a lesbian villain? And, we felt like she was a villain because she was a victim of abuse, not because she's a lesbian, so we tried to very much make her motivation around the fact that she had been abused and a victim of abuse and had kind of gone in the wrong direction, where both Honey and MG had similar upbringings, similar abusive fathers, but Honey took the righteous road and MG took the wrong path.
Mm-hmm. It's a trope. It reads as a trope, and that's intentional. Like, that is what the idea behind it.
Right. That was, we wanted to work within the confines of those noirs. We didn't want to go too deep into anything. We don't have a lot of depth.
Thank you to our sponsor, Olivia Travel, the travel company for lesbians and LGBTQ plus women. If you like this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. It really helps others discover our podcast. Cruising is produced by a small but mighty team of 3 queer women, Rachel Karp, Jen McGinnity, and me, your host and editor, Sarah Gabrielli. Our theme song is by Joey Freeman. You can support us at buymeacoffee.com/cruisingpod or follow us on social media at cruisingpod and on the web at www.cruisingpod.com.
Ticklish business any way you look at it. Come on, we'll stick together.
Love movies? Love classic movies? So do we. Ticklish Business is the podcast where classic film is discussed in modern times. Hosted by me, film journalist Kristen Lopez, and my co-host, author Emily Edwards, we dive into the golden age of cinema with fun, heart, and serious expertise. As published film historians and lifelong classic movie buffs, we bring insider insights, deep research, and lively debates with a variety of special guests, ranging from celebrities like Holly Madison to TCM luminaries Dave Karger and Eddie Muller, and even family members of old Hollywood legends. Subscribe now to Ticklish Business on your favorite podcast app, and let's talk about old Hollywood today.
Hi, I'm Brandy Basanti. For the last 15 years, I've starred on one of the most successful reality shows of all time, Storage Wars. On my new show, The Real Reality, my guest and I will reveal the real story of what it's like navigating fame and notoriety. Because it's my show, I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. No filters, no rules, no network executives. And I believe that's what the world wants. Raw, real, authentic, and I'm gonna fucking give it to you. Though success is great, being in the public eye can come at a cost. Oftentimes, what you see on camera is not the real reality. On each episode of my show, we'll sit down with a different notable individual from the world of TV, film, sports, or internet fame. We will explore their unique story, what really happened on and off camera, how becoming famous has truly impacted their lives, and what their vision is for their future. In a world obsessed with celebrity, followers, and subscribers, the true story is often lost or even buried. This show will reveal what really happened. This show will reveal what people really felt. This show will reveal what fame is really like. This is The Real Reality. Subscribe now, wherever you get your podcasts.